Gary Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports IO College Basketball Podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, and leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, you know what to do to that like button. Shouts to Brandon Davies. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel, please also do that while you're here. Let's get into it. We are in Kansas City.
We are.
T-Mobile Center.
Yes.
We've been here for Big 12 Media Day, and we figured this would be a perfect opportunity to continue our series of conference previews that we've been doing for the past week or so. It's a Big 12 preview. Norlander, today we've talked to, Kelvin Sampson, Bill Self, Scott Drew, Tommy Lloyd, Grant McCasland, perhaps the top two picks of the 2026 NBA draft. That's A.J. Dybantsa and Darren Peterson. I'm a veteran of Big 12 Media Day.
Are you?
I've done this before.
How many times?
I can never keep track of stuff like that, but a bunch.
He doesn't know.
Quite a few. I know I was here last year, and I know I was here before last year.
Really? Okay.
But this was your first time, your first experience of Big 12 Media Day. How did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed it plenty. If you are listening to the pod, go to that YouTube page, sincerely. Subscribe and watch this, because we got GP and I here. Parrish doesn't have use of his left arm, so this is a podcast with tremendous potential.
What do you think happened?
I don't know.
Let me tell you what happened. Norlander and I went to dinner last night. I had a very mediocre burnt-end sandwich.
Correct.
All right?
Yes. Yeah.
And it was a perfectly good night. And then I went back to my hotel room, and I watched the end of the NBA doubleheader. And I got some work done. And then at some point, I laid down and went to sleep.
Sure.
And when I woke up this morning, I couldn't move my left arm. I can't. That's it. That's as far as it goes. That's as far as
we have a dead arm situation here.
I got it. I'm now dead arm.
And you got a dead arm situation.
What goes around comes around.
But I believe Parrish, by the way, he teed me up, and then he just took his own story. So we're 1 for 1. We're back. We're back as strong as we ever were. What I was going to say was we have this awesome backdrop. By the way, shouts to Gigi and Greg, part of our amazing team. They're behind us. They're off camera. Gigi made sure we had this awesome backdrop here just for the pod. Big 12, tremendous. As good, if not better, than any Media Day setup I've ever been a part of. Wanted to mention that. Had never come out here. This is my first time ever to Kansas City. And that's one of my biggest takeaways, was just how well run this whole event is. We're here in what they like to say, the bowels of the arena. But everything that was out in the main bowl, everything they ran it was wonderful. And I had a really, really good time. And frankly, this is our first together. Hope it's not our last. And we've got a 3-camera situation going on right here. This is a high-level podcast production. We're face-to-face. We're sitting on a 45-degree angle. We got our computers. This is your Big 12 preview. This is different from all the other ones. This is the benefit of coming to one location together, being face-to-face, same day. So you're getting this on the feeds, a little removed from when we're taping it, but we're all too happy to do so and happy to dive in and mostly give you a lot of, with the Big 12, as we did with the ACC, Big East, Big 10, and SEC.
I love being here just because it's an opportunity to see everybody again.
Yeah.
You know, we're spending real time.
That's great.
Like the best.
I'm going to jump here real quick here because I didn't want to not mention this. It is so good just to see, not just the players, and we'll get to them, but just to see the coaches. Everyone's in a good mood. No one's lost a game yet. Some of these guys, we see plenty of these guys in the summer, but sometimes we don't actually see them because they're in one gym, they're in one state while we're in another, and we're just like crossing paths, walking through the hallways. Got to spend time with Clark Kellogg. Saw a number of folks in the media. We haven't seen. Ran into Seth Davis. It was wonderful just to catch up with folks in general. So I'm right there with you. This is a very, very productive trip. Not just for the interviews. We're happy to drop those in the podcast feed, but just to press some flesh and to get to see these folks again. Because you and I both know it's October 22nd as we tape this. A lot of these guys on November 22nd, they're just going to be going through some different stuff. Not that they're not awesome to talk to. They are, but their mindset right now is not what it's going to be 4 weeks from now.
Yeah, and just spending real time with Bill Self, real time with Kelvin Sampson, real time with Tommy Lloyd, TJ Otzelberger. It's just a fun day, and I really do think this might be the best media day that you could be at because you've got national championship coaches, Hall of Famers, future Hall of Famers, and then again, the 2 young men who might be the top 2 picks in the NBA draft. And, you know, it gets referenced sometimes, particularly back home, how I did that sit down with Derrick Rose at Central Barbecue once upon a time. And it did occur to me today that we were having those moments.
Yeah.
Like you sat down with AJ, I sat down with Darren Peterson, And it wasn't lost on me that in that moment, I was talking to somebody who really could be the face of the NBA someday. Either one of them could be.
Yes, no, without a doubt. And that is a big-time storyline. We're going to get to that. But let's get to the top 5 storylines here going in. By the way, on this one, GP and I collaborated, but I'll read them off, tee them up. We'll go back and forth here. I think we do agree that the number one storyline in the league this season is, can Houston go from national title game loser to national championship winning team? Can they go from, one possession away to getting it done? You talk with Kelvin on cam. I want to hear about that, because the other interesting thing about this is we just did all these. So, I didn't hear what GP and Kelvin talked about, or GP and Tommy Lloyd. He didn't hear what I chatted over with Jerome Tang, although I did tell him that the Tang appearance on the pod was awesome, in addition to some other players there. But I did get to talk to Kelvin with Clark in the hallway for just a little bit, and an amazing storyteller, and he's ready. I mean, I know he's ready, but what were your takeaways from your chat with him? And I know you don't have Houston preseason number 1, but with what they're capable of and just how he's wired, I mean, it's hard to walk away from a day like this, GP, and not think there's one coach who's actually built to withstand getting that far, and then got to climb all the way up that mountain again. Right. You were right there. You were one shot away, and then you tumble all the way to the back, and now they're going to do it again. I think Kelvin's built to do it. 100%,
and I think he knows he's got a team that can do it, and also knows that he's had teams in the past that could have done it, including the one last season. I mean, it wasn't just that they were in the national title game. They were up 12 points in the second half. Mm-hmm. That there was a moment on that Monday night where, if you were watching that game, you assumed Kelvin Sampson was about to win a national championship. The Houston Cougars were going to be your champions. And then Walter Clayton happened and everything else. But it was interesting because Kelvin said, yeah, I've gone back and looked at it. Not watched the whole game, but I have gone back and looked at from 16 to 12, from 12 to 8, these little 4-minute spots. What happened? What happened? Mm-hmm. How did we go from up 12 to now we're only up 8? What happened? And he said he went back and looked at all of that, but he's not getting caught up on it. The idea that he's walking around burdened every day because he let a national championship slip away, for lack of a better phrase, just not his reality. And he said that he doesn't need to retire with a national championship. It's not, if he retires and he doesn't have one, it will not be something that burdens him every day of his life. But absolutely, he wants to get it. And I think there's a certain confidence with him right now where he knows that, it's not the same team, but it's a team that is, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, perhaps not equally equipped to try to go do the whole thing, but can you go do the whole thing? Yeah. And he's going to take a shot at it.
This podcast is going to publish on Friday. If some early birds are getting to it, I think you're going to listen before my preseason top 101 teams finally publishes. I'll say right here, Houston is my preseason number 1. I settled on that a few weeks ago, but I ultimately, I landed on it, with finality, maybe 2 weeks or so. And it's splitting hairs. I've got Houston 1, and I've got Purdue number 2. I've got the Johnnies on the back end of the top 10 GP's number 1 team, of course. Here's who they had back: Emmanuel Sharp, who we saw walking around today, Milos Uzan walking around today, Joseph Tugler, our preseason defensive player of the year. We actually just introduced that award for the first time this season. That published earlier this week. They bring in Chris Senack, and talking to Kelvin about Senack because he's a 5-star player. Traditionally, he has not brought in these kind of players. He's really excited, but as we got to talking about Tugler, he's like, oh yeah, he's getting a learning lesson every single day because Tugler's abilities are just insane. He called Tugler the crazy glue that plugs every single hole that we could possibly need. So they bring back plenty of pieces. I'm going to buy in on Uzan being one of the best guards in the country, Tugler being maybe the best defensive player in the country, that staff, everything there. They're my preseason pick. It's very, very close. They finished top 2 at Ken Pom 4 seasons in a row. But yes, the story of Houston, within the context of the Big 12, but also within the context nationally, a very famous, borderline infamous finish. And I am very intrigued to see if they can do it. And then just keep this in mind. A year ago, Houston started, do you remember that? They were 4-3. They started, so the win-loss was kind of like, we'll kind of wait and see. Guess what? They lost 2 games the rest of the season. So if we have some hiccups, Houston is going to go playing the Players era in Vegas. I'll be out there to see the Cougs up close and personal. Don't go overreacting, and I promise not to unless they pull like a UConn in Vegas and go, maybe then I'll overreact. But I think what Kelvin told you, I think there's a very real potential that there's some bumps in the first month of the season. They won't flip out over that. They won't stress. There is a process, and if that were to happen, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if then we got to the middle of February and we looked up and Houston had lost like 1 or 2 games since then. We know they're capable of doing it.
Just a couple more thoughts on Kelvin. He made some interesting points. One, just about the culture that they have established there and maintained despite roster turnover. He said this morning, because his wife's out of town, and he woke up in Houston this morning. And he said this morning he woke up at 4:30, took the dog out, went walking, and then came back, took the dog out again, eventually got into the gym at 5:15, around 5:30, and said his players were already in there, working. And he was like, that's the stuff. That's the good stuff. I asked him about being 34-4 in the Big 12, because that's what they are since he moved that program from the American to this conference, which is outrageous. Even when Bill is stringing 14 straight Big 12 regular season titles, you're not supposed to go 19-1 in the league, 34-4 over a 2-year span. So I said, how do you make sense of it? And he said, when you frame it like that, you can't make sense of it. I don't even know how I'm 34-4 in the Big 12. You're not supposed to do that. Nobody's supposed to do that. He said, but the thing that people always get backwards is I don't talk about coaching in the Big 12 ever, because I don't coach against the conference. I coach against teams. Now, I was in a conference, and sometimes those teams were Memphis and East Carolina, and now they're Kansas and Texas Tech, but it's just teams. I'm just trying to figure out how to beat this team in front of us, and that's the way I've looked at it forever, whether I was in the American, the Big 10, the Big 12, wherever I worked. Give me the schedule, and it's got teams on it. I'm not playing a conference. I'm playing teams that come from these conferences. And he just seems to look at it a totally different way. And whatever he's doing, it's clearly working, because barring a surprise, and there's obviously other legitimate title contenders in this league, but barring a surprise, they're the pick. They should win it, and if they do, it would be a 3rd straight.
And Uzan is going to be in that conversation, potentially be the league player of the year. Wouldn't surprise me. But let's go to storyline number 2. AJ Dybantsa versus Darren Peterson versus JT Toppin for Big 12 player of the year. We will don't spoil it yet. We will reveal each of our picks at the end of the podcast, Parrish. Don't spoil it yet. So let's talk around the storyline without revealing who you actually have decided. Here's one spoiler. We don't have the same pick. You sat with Peterson. I sat with Dybantsa and Toppin. Don't spoil. Don't spoil. Don't spoil. I'll lift up your left arm.
It hurts so bad, man.
I think this is going to be one of the dominant storylines in the conference and a dominant storyline nationally. Real quick from me on Dybantsa and Toppin. Obviously, if you're watching, listening, you can go back and intake those interviews in our podcast feed on YouTube or wherever you listen and get your pods. Toppin's super humble, and I think he is maybe slightly a little bit undervalued, just because in the context of these incoming freshmen, one-and-done players, Braden Smith, preseason, National Player of the Year, all that stuff. Toppin was an outright beast, and basically, in my estimation, went from a guy who was outside the All-American conversation period to in a 3-4 week span becoming one of the 3 or 4 best players in the entire country and vaulting himself into that first-team All-America status. I will not undervalue or underrate him. I'll get to see him in person when Texas Tech plays at Illinois in the 2nd week of the season. I'll let you speak on Peterson. I did sit down with Dybantsa. I do think he is going to be a monster this season who is capable of winning games for BYU in a variety of different ways. I don't think they're necessarily going to ask him, or he'll be a guy who drops 35 plus 6 times this season. If he does it, I won't be stunned, but they have too much offense. I mean, if maybe BYU GP is able to average...
He's got 30 the other night.
I know, he did. But as he told me, like... And I do believe him when he says, he's like, we lost the game. Yeah. Like, what does it mean to ease? And he took the Nebraska exhibition as though it was a real deal game. But his defense, and KY, Kevin Young, who sat down with me, said, I do think that he can be the best defender in the country. A lot of coaches say that about a lot of high-level defenders. Dybantsa is actually long enough and physically gifted enough.
But just because you're long enough and physically gifted enough doesn't mean anything.
Correct.
Now, it means you've got the stuff to do it.
Got to do
but it doesn't mean you will.
But we'll see if like Tugler is undeniably insane.
Right.
Well, if Dybantsa is going to be that committed to it, we'll see. But I do think that he is going to have just a variety of different games where, and we talked about this a little bit at dinner last night, be it Peterson, Dybantsa, you can throw Boozer in. I just think the freshman class and some other dudes that are awesome as well. Matt, Mikael Brown Jr., you can go down the list. We could have an amazing, amazing year for freshmen. I'm fascinated by this player race. And this trio, whoever else emerges, is interesting. Quick from you on Peterson. What did you take away from that interview? I talked with him outside after with you, and hard not to be impressed by what he is and what Bill Self said about him.
He's an impressive young man. He's got a lot on him right now. I talked to him a little bit about that. Most of us go through life and we don't get compared to Kobe Bryant. Mm-hmm. You can Google. I told him this. I said, I don't know how often you Google yourself, but I Googled you a lot. And I can run into things that say you're Kobe Bryant. I can run into things that say you're the best incoming freshman since Derrick Rose. I can run into things that just compare you to a Porsche 911. It's all out there. And he was like, yeah, it's surreal. He's like, the one I'm not comfortable with is Kobe, because he's one of my GOATs, and I don't think I belong in that conversation. But he's very aware of who he is. And honestly, you touched on it, but it's exactly right. Talking to Bill Self about him is more interesting than talking to Darren about himself, because Bill has coached the #1 pick in the draft in Andrew Wiggins. He's coached an MVP in Joel Embiid. And he doesn't mince words when it comes to Darren Peterson. I've never coached a freshman like this. He said it on camera. He said it off camera. He's going to put the ball in that young man's hands and ask him to get Kansas back to a good place or a better place than it's been the past couple of years. And there's a lot of reasons to think he's capable of doing it. Again, I won't spoil, but this is something I don't think I've ever done. And maybe this just hammers home the point we're making, because I think this Big 12 Player of the Year race could also double as the National Player of the Year race.
Right, yes.
It could be the National Player of the Year race.
It's totally possible.
JT Toppin is the reigning Big 12 Player of the Year, and he's back in school. And on my ballot, he was third.
Okay.
He was third in preseason Big 12 Player of the Year, because I think the two freshmen are just special.
Just a little bit, we'll reveal who we have picked on that. Let's go to storyline 3 and stick with Kansas there. Can Kansas bounce back in a big way? And by big way, again, this is, you can go read at cbssports.com, and Nada will drop this in the episode description on YouTube and in the audio feed. I have Kansas number 7 in the country. I have Kansas as the second team in the pecking order in the Big 12. Largely because I am that much of a believer in Darren Peterson. He ranks at, we haven't released this yet as of when this episode is going to run, but we're going to have our top 101 players list come out next week and really gearing you up for college hoop season. And I'll just tell you, I've got Peterson either 1 or 2. I don't know if he'll be 1 or 2 on our ultimate list, but he's going to be no worse than 3, and I think he's going to be that good, that valuable. I think his volume and usage is going to be so high that I am going to put stock in the idea that Bill Self is not going to have 3 subpar years for his standard, for the Kansas standard. This could be a big whiff by me. You won't find anyone that's ranked Kansas higher than me. No metric, no human, no nothing. I've got him 7th overall, 2nd in the Big 12. Regardless if I'm right or wrong, that is going to be a big thing that really lingers out there, because, yeah, there are some pieces that return, and I can't wait to see what Flory Badunga does. I think he's going to make a really big bounce. Marco Jackson, is he going to start? Is he going to come off the bench? I know Melvin Council has really impressed Bill at this point, but what is Kansas going to be? Because that fan base, understandably so, has been irked. Now they've got one of the best coaches ever on the sideline there. It's hard for me to resolve around the idea that KU would go 3 straight seasons not making a Sweet 16, not being a 1, 2, 3, or 4 seed, not being a team that finishes 1, 2, 3, or 4 in the league. So I'm going to buy in that that's fixed because of Peterson more than anyone else. Where do you come down on KU?
I have them closer to where most people have them.
Right. Mid-teens nationally.
Yeah. Mid-teens and, 5th, 6th in the Big 12. We'll go through the order in a minute. When you look at the roster, and you start comparing them to other great Kansas rosters, I don't think it measures up top to bottom. Mm-hmm. But the one young man is obviously special, and there's enough talent around him for them to be really good. I do think it's a bounce-back season on some level. And talking to Bill, again, he really wants that. he will remind you that we were a 4 seed. Like we didn't sneak in.
Correct.
We hadn't been to Dayton yet.
KU standard, right?
But like his standard is higher, and he holds himself to that standard as well. And I don't know. He didn't say this exactly, but I don't know that it's a coincidence that the worst 2 years for him, and quotes around worse, coincide with these health struggles. And again, he's had the second procedure. He looks good. He says he feels better than he's felt in years. And more than that is he seems really motivated. Like he hears this stuff. Mm-hmm. He's not the type who hears it and then calls you and cusses you out. Those are other guys. But he hears what people are saying. Has Bill Self slipped? Has the program slipped? And he wants to stop people from asking those questions.
No doubt. Quick little update on KU's roster. We mentioned Badunga, Marco Jackson, Jaden Dawson, transfer from Loyola Chicago. Keep an eye on him. I mentioned Melvin Council, who's going to be a player that I think you're going to see start day one for the Jayhawks. Paul Mbia, an international player. We also covered a lot of this on the KU-specific shoot-around episode over the summer. On its surface, it's a roster that I understand why a lot of people have not projected KU to be a team that finishes top 3, maybe not even top 4 in the league, not top 15 in the country. Again, Self is a hell of a coach. I don't think he's lost that ability, and I do think it's on the table for Peterson to be just a heck of a player. Storyline number 4, we'll keep it moving here. Texas Tech. Texas Tech, I talked with Toppin. I'm actually interested to see if you talk with Grant about this as well. They had the most dramatic swells of any team in the second weekend of the tournament last season. When you look at what happened with the Arkansas game and then the Florida game, can they go from the doorstep of the Final Four to actually making the jump and doing that? Is Toppin, for as talented as he is, and he's not going to have to do it all himself, but if he's going to be a first-team All-American, he's going to have to, if he's going to be at that level, then that's going to give Texas Tech a chance. If he falls short of that, third team, not even being a top 15 player, it's hard for me to see them breaking through on that. Your thoughts on McCaslin's Red Raiders, and what did he tell you during your sit-down?
Well, I talked to him specifically about the Florida game in the Elite Eight, and he was, because I've had conversations with coaches. There are some coaches who lose a game like that, and they never go back to it.
Yeah.
They can't.
But it feels like, it could be wrong, to me it feels like maybe it's a new, some are still like that, but I feel like more and more coaches are willing to at least, this is just anecdotal, me talking to some guys, and it does not surprise me that Grant's willing to go and take a peek at it and look at it and see, look under the hood. There's nothing to be afraid of on the tape. We lived it. Like, there's nothing wrong with like going through that another 5, 10, 15 times.
Well, he actually watched it the night of the game, went back and rewatched it that night, and says he goes back to it all the time, and is really like trying to learn from it. And I said, well, what have you learned? And I thought this was interesting because he had a very specific answer. He said, I don't think I handled my offense-defense substitutions. Like when you get into those types of situations where you're subbing for offense-defense, and I've never really done that. And I don't think I did it well. And I have now, he seemed to suggest I played through that. And if we played that game again and we were in those same situations again, I would do things differently because of what I've learned by watching what I did. And I think that's really impressive. I mean, this is an accomplished coach, multimillionaire, like one of the best in the country. I mean, ranked second in the coaching rankings at KenPom, in part because he's been a head coach at the Division I level for 9 years and has exceeded preseason expectations, according to KenPom, every single season.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so
that's a good nugget. I actually didn't realize that he had every single season. He's outpaced and outperformed. He
starts here and he ends up better every year, without exception, no matter where he's been the coach.
Yep.
And that's the good stuff. That's when you know, like, there's some substance here. And so how do you get that way? You don't ever think you've got it figured out. So this is a man at, I don't want to say the low point of his coaching career, because I'll let him describe that. But you're maybe a few baskets away from a Final Four, and then it's just over. You can hide from that if you want to, or you can get right in front of it and try to learn from it. And his approach has been to try to learn from it, and he thinks that he has.
Roster-wise, we also sat down with Chris Anderson. He's listed as Christian, but we talked before. He actually likes to be going by Chris. He'll be a big player for them as well. Luke Benboye from VCU is going to be a guy that has high impact. Tyree Bryan, Lawan Watts were also a couple other guys that Toppin and Anderson pointed out there. Red Raiders, I would say don't sleep on them. No one's really sleeping on them, but that is a team that is, if they won the Big 12, I don't have them projected to do it. I don't even have them in my top 3. I just wouldn't be surprised if they did it because of what you mentioned with McCaslin. Last storyline here. Can the Big 12, can it wrestle back the title of being the best conference in men's college basketball? Quite clearly, the SEC had that a year ago. I sat down with Brett Yormark. We talked a lot about big picture stuff in college athletics, but he did get onto the topic of the Big 12, and he said, this is the best basketball league, which he's the commissioner. Of course, he's going to say that. He should say that. And if you went back the past 12 years overall, the Big 12 has been the best league 8 or 9 of those 12 seasons.
There's a way to frame it. If you want to make the argument, Big 12's best conference,
you can do it.
You can
it wasn't last year, but it has been, and that's frankly irrefutable. Can it get back this season? We both think that it's going to be a 3-league race: SEC, Big 10, Big 12. If you made me guess, I actually would guess the Big 10 will rank number 1 in the metrics at the end of the season. But the Big 12 doing it wouldn't be a surprise whatsoever. Just keep in mind there's a top 6, and then after that we're going to figure it out, and that would be Houston, Kansas. This is my order: Houston, Kansas, Arizona, Texas Tech, BYU, Iowa State. And then we see, what are your thoughts on the Big 12? And just toss me a percentage here, because I know you like your numbers. What percentage would you give that the Big 12 actually does rate number 1 at the end of the season?
40%.
Okay, yeah, I think that's healthy.
Yeah, less than 50, because you're competing with the SEC and Big 10. You're only competing with the SEC and Big 10. Right. The ACC can't sniff that.
Yeah, and we don't think the Big East can get into that conversation.
So this is, we say Power 5 in basketball, Power 4 in football. There are really 3 leagues in men's basketball this season that stand out above all others. And I can honestly see them finishing in the computers in any order. 1, 2, 3 in any order. But I will say this, regardless of whether the Big 12's the best conference this season, I think it's the most interesting.
Yeah.
It's the most interesting because you've got the man who coaches told us in the Candid Coaches Series they expect to be the next first-time national champion. You've got him with a preseason top 5 team coming off a trip to the national title game. You've got a 2-time national champion in Bill Self trying to bounce back and get that program back to where it was. You've got Scott Drew, future Hall of Famer, national champion, trying to rebuild from nothing. 0 players returning in Waco. And then again, maybe the top 2 picks in the NBA draft, turning a Big 12 Freshman of the Year race into a Big 12 Player of the Year race into a Wooden Award race. I don't know if it'll be the best league, but it's going to be the most entertaining. I think that's clear. Yeah, it's going to be a really, really entertaining league. I'm intrigued to see where it is here. Since it's just you and me and we're not screens apart. Well, I'm saying we're not screens apart here. Let's just make the immediate transition. I know Nada's got us covered after the fact with the breaks and all that. And let's go to our projections of how we have each team finishing overall. I can't see your list and you can't see the mine like we normally do. So I'll read off my top 8 in order here. I've got Houston 1, Kansas 2, Arizona 3, Texas Tech 4, BYU 5, Iowa State 6. I have all of those in my preseason top 20. And then I've got Baylor 7, Cincinnati 8. I'll do a couple of notes on a couple of those teams in just a second. But GP, that was my order. Thoughts on it? And if you want to read me off your top 8, I don't know where we land the same overall, but we obviously got to dive into at least Arizona, Iowa State, Baylor, and UC before we move on to the bottom half of the league. You're obviously higher on Kansas than I am than most. We've acknowledged that. I don't see the roster getting them to that place, but it's Bill Self. And there was a time, not too long ago, where you just trust Bill Self to figure it out. Like quite literally, he would have been given the benefit of the doubt because they kept winning every single year. So yeah, there was a year where he lost all 5 starters and had a #1 team in the country again. All right, if anybody can exceed expectations, it'd probably be the guy who's won 2 national championships in Lawrence. We've got the same top 7, just in different order. Okay. So I went Houston 1. We both go Houston 1. I went BYU 2. Okay. I just for the last 8 weeks, I forget exactly how I had it all framed up, but at one point, let's call it 8 weeks, 10 weeks. There was a period in time where they were playing like a top 10 team in America, right? And I think the roster upgraded. The starters that they lost were replaced by people I think will be better this season than the people who played those positions last season at BYU. So I'm really high on them. I've got them 2nd. Texas Tech 3, Arizona 4, Iowa State 5. I've got Kansas at 6, but I don't have much difference between, say, Arizona and Kansas in the top 25 and 1. But when you start shaking it out, it goes Arizona 4, Iowa State 5, Kansas 6, Baylor at 7, Kansas State at 8.
We'll get to the Wildcats in just a second there. Real quick on Arizona's roster, I think Jaden Bradley might be the best all-around player that we didn't put on our preseason All-American team. I've got sky-high expectations for him. Saw Toby Awaka walking around today, and I mean, just a couple of these guys walking around is just ridiculous how well built they are and how athletic they are. They're obviously key returnees. Koa Pete, Braden Burries are big-time guys that are incoming into the program. A couple of awesome freshmen who aren't going to get as much attention going into the season. But if you told me Burries had like 7 or 8 games of 20-plus points for Arizona, I totally would believe you. Pete, at one point in his recruitment, was viewed as, you know, a top 3, top 4 level guy. He didn't wind up there in the rankings, but he's a really good
He was
piece.
one of the stars of the U19 team that won a gold medal in Switzerland, and that team was coached by Tommy Lloyd.
Yes.
I talked to Tommy today about that specifically. Like, do you gain something from that? He's like, yeah, we got like 3 weeks together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we got like that real, and like all the off-court stuff, sure, but like we ran a lot of stuff with USA Basketball the same way we're going to run it with him in Arizona. So he got like a, an early course in what it's going to look like.
That's good stuff. Motia Krivas, by the way, he's back. He's going to be healthy. Could be an immense piece defensively for Arizona. Keep on scooting down there. We've talked about Houston. We've talked about KU. Talked about Texas Tech. Talked about BYU. Iowa State. I sat with TJ earlier. They bring back Tamin Lipsey, expected to start. If you listen to the interview, you know this. He's expected to be able to be back and playing for them to start the season, which is going to be huge. But it won't just be him. I'm big on ISU, generally speaking, because I think Joshua Jefferson is going to make a huge pop this year. You've got Milan Momcilovic. Those are the core 3, really. And then they've got some freshmen they're going to keep an eye on, see if they can develop into some supporting players. And then Mason Williams from Eastern Washington, Dominic Nelson from Utah Valley also will factor in. If you wanted to take a look at the ISU roster and say, I don't know, I was wrong on ISU a year ago. I apologize to TJ on camera. He wasn't expecting it. And when I was saying, he was like, you don't have to do this. I was like, no, I'm going to own up to it. I had you like outside the top 20. It was a bad whiff. I'm not going to make that mistake again. They've got something cooking there. Quick thoughts on the Clones.
Well, I think they return more minutes per game than any other Big 12 team. And so, like, this is a league where multiple schools are literally returning nobody. Mm-hmm. And TJ, once again, is returning a good portion of a team that was good. Like, I don't ever try to make it more complicated than that. Has this guy proven to be a consistently good coach? Yes. Has the players he's relying on proven to be consistently good college players and successful ones? Yes. All right, I assume it'll go that way again. Although the Lipsey injury, good to know he's expected to be back for the opener. But any time missed this time of the year is not a great time.
All right, next 3 teams. I think we both have Baylor at 7, so we'll go Baylor. Then we'll talk Cincinnati, my 8th team, and GP's got K-State at number 8. So let's touch on all these 3 here. Baylor does not return a single player that played for them a season ago, which is wild to think that a national championship winning coach would ever be in this position when not taking a new job. That's exactly where they are. You and I got to spend some time with Scott Drew. Does he ever have a single bad day? I mean, it's just unreal. It's always a bucket of sunshine with him, and it was great to see him. I got to talk to Dan Skillings on his team formerly at Cincinnati, and just heard from the people around the program that they actually it's kind of amazing how well their team is gelling, considering these dudes did not know each other 6 months ago. I'll trust that Drew figures it out. Yeah. But I do think, if we're being fair, okay, shouts to Huck and all that stuff, I think Baylor could I think their best case scenario is 5 if it all clicks, and their worst case scenario in a 16-team league is maybe 12. Like, it is a wide variety. You and I are optimistic overall, but we'll see how the pieces fit. How was your chat with Scott?
Just like every other one, always great.
Yes,
always wonderful. Like I just really like him. Like he's. We ask coaches the type of coaches they would like their sons to play for, and I could see my son spending time with Scott Drew. It's unusual. Like, he's had incredible challenges throughout his career, starting right from the jump at Baylor, and this is a new one. Like, he's never gone through this before. Our friend C.J. Moore at The Athletic had done a really nice piece, I think earlier this month maybe, on just how they went about rebuilding this with the general manager, and how a lot of it's like they're really just plugging numbers into an algorithm and seeing what it spits out, and then going and looking at the players that it spits out. That the recruitment is almost like completely backwards.
Right.
And so I talked to Scott a little bit about that. Like, I assume you're the type who likes to sit in living rooms and get to know people, and you don't really doing that anymore. And he's like, yeah, it's different, and I prefer getting to know people. I like people, but this is a new challenge, and we'll figure it out. He does have another 5-star freshman, and that's Dybantsa and Peterson are so good, we just don't even talk about these other guys, like Koa-Pete, Chris Sinak.
Yeah.
And then there's one at Baylor, Tunda Yesufu, who is 6'5", guard, the all-time leading scorer in California high school basketball.
Which is that's an insane nugget.
That's a big state with a lot of players.
That's a huge state with a ton of amazing players. I went through it.
So barring a surprise, once again,
yet another one-and-done lottery pick from Baylor.
Yes.
Cincinnati, Wes Miller doesn't have Jizzle James. They were expecting to have him. He was kicked off the team, and so that kind of resets them a little bit here. But just watch for Day Thomas. He could be the guy who isn't expected to be preseason Big 12 first team, maybe not second team, that really emerges as a major factor there. Playing alongside Sincere Harris, legit two-way player. Kirk Kriisa got one more year. His involvement there. I also like Jalen Haynes. Jalen Celestine, speaking of Baylor, he's making the trade. It's almost like Baylor, it's not almost like they practically did. Baylor and Cincy traded players. Celestine went from Baylor to Cincy, and then Skillings went from Cincy to Baylor.
That is the other thing we see, like here, I saw the Big Ten Media Day.
Yeah.
It is like,
you're like, wait, you're in that uniform?
What are you doing? Didn't you used to wear this uniform?
Yes.
Hey, your old coach is right here,
Correct.
and your new coach is right there. There's a lot of that.
There was also there was one a person who's an SID now, but they were at another school and I didn't realize they had the job, so I did like a triple take. I was like, okay, well, this is just how things work here now. Big year for Wes Miller, quite clearly on the hot seat. I would think, needs to make the tournament in order to hold on to his job. I do like Cincinnati to make the NCAA tournament. Let's transition to K-State. Jerome Tang, he raved to me about their guard depth. 6 deep, and thinks that they're going to be able to go. Sometimes maybe he's going to want to go 4 guards at a time. Now, he did say we got some size. Like, some of these guys are really 6'7", so guard/wings. You've got K-State 8 overall. I've got them 1 lower, so I've got them 9. I came away inspired from my talk with Tang. If you want to listen to it, I'm not going to repeat everything we talked about. But he did say, only for our podcast, he revealed that last year in November, because actually he said the staff had talked about, like, don't bring this up at Media Day. And then he said, I love the podcast, so I'm going to give you this. He said his staff approached him, and basically it was like, actually, the issue with why we're not working here right now as a team and it's going sideways, it's actually you. And he basically was like, hey, guys, it sounds like the issue is me and no one's going to tell me. So if it's me, just tell me it's me. And they basically said, yes, but here's how it is. And as I told Tang, a lot of head coaches wouldn't want to be told that, and a lot of staffs would never admit to it. Really speaks to the trust there. I do expect a big bounce back year, of course, led by P.J. Haggerty. It's taken us way too long to mention his name. He is also absolutely, if K-State can get to the tournament and be that team that cracks in the top 6, you better believe that he is capable of actually stealing Player of the Year in this league and being a first-team All-American if it all comes together, and he's a guy who can average 22 points, 6.5 assists, 6.5 boards. That is on the table if it all clicks, and Tang is thrilled about him.
He's the reigning American Athletic Conference Player of the Year after having what was quite literally one of the greatest individual seasons in Memphis basketball history. Like, that's a place that Penny Hardaway played there. Derrick Rose played there. And he had one of the greatest one seasons in history. We bumped into Jerome last night at dinner, and he's real high on Haggerty. And it is like people have forgotten he's one of the 10 best players in the country last year.
Yep.
He's a consensus second-team All-American, and everybody automatically threw Braden Smith first team because he was back. Everybody automatically threw JT Toppin first team because he was back. But the one All-American from last year who got left out of that conversation, kinda, is P.J. Haggerty. And you talk to Jerome Tang long enough, he thinks he'll re-enter that conversation pretty quickly.
He is just so high, and he's the biggest player overall. He's going to be ultra valuable, but it's not just him. They do bring back David Castillo, who's obviously big, and then the other transfers coming in: Nate Johnson, Marcus Johnson. They've got a lot of guys who, unless you're a super diehard, you're not going to know. But I'll tell you this: talking to Tang now versus talking to him a year ago when they had all this hype and he was excited. I get a different read off of him, and I do think that they've got a really, really healthy chance at being a top half of the league team. That said, I technically do have them 9. I'll read my 9 through 16. GP will read through his. So I've got K-State at 9. I got TCU at 10. I have Oklahoma State at 11, and I think I am lower on the Pokes than maybe the average voter or coach in the league. I have West Virginia at 12, and then if I'm being entirely transparent, I would actually draw a line, and then we get to the bottom 4. UCF, then Arizona State, then Utah, then Colorado. What's your 9 through 16 look like?
I had Cincinnati at 9.
Okay.
So we're through
Same
there.
group in the top 9.
Yes, we have the same group in the top 9, and that's where I think the break is.
Yep.
And then I go TCU 10, Arizona State 11, West Virginia 12, Oklahoma State 13, UCF 14, Colorado 15, Utah 16. And so what's most interesting about that group of schools is that there's some thought that Bobby Hurley at Arizona State needs to be better than this.
Talked with me on the show, and I so appreciate this. I'm in the last year of my contract. We talked a little bit about that. Everyone knows the score and knows the deal at Arizona State.
Yes.
If Arizona State finishes where you and I both have them, they will have a new coach next season.
And the truth is, he kind of had this feeling coming into last season. And I was at an Arizona State game, I think, in February, and the vibes then were not good. It didn't. If you were betting on that night, I think they lost an overtime game to Texas Tech.
Yes. Yeah.
If you were betting that night, you would have maybe bet that Bobby's not back. But he is. But clearly he enters this season with real job pressure. And then does Johnny Dawkins have job pressure at UCF? You would think.
Yes.
And then, though Tad is, I don't think, at risk of being removed necessarily, but you just wonder, age, state of the program, is it possible that he could walk away at the end of this thing? I'll let him make that decision, obviously. But to me, the most interesting thing about the bottom part of the Big 12 is that you've got multiple schools, maybe 3, that if they don't finish better than they're expected to finish, they could all 3 have different coaches.
They could. Colorado, from a roster standpoint, is interesting in that they actually do return some players that were able to produce. Colorado wasn't that good of a team. It beat UConn and Maui last season, and in that moment, it's like, okay, might Colorado be something? Finished below 500, and he's got this mix of international players, a big freshman class coming in, just a couple of pair of transfers overall. They're projected low. Boyle's a really good coach. We could whiff. This could be a classic case of a team picked 15 or 16, and they managed finishing 9th. What do we know in the preseason? We get that all the time.
They do bring back 3 of their top 7 scores.
Yes.
But it's 3 of the top 7 scores from a team that went 3-17 in the Big 12. So
correct.
You tell me what that's
correct. As for Utah, coached by new coach Alex Jensen, and just for full transparency, if you listen to the feed, there's just so much passing through here. We can't possibly get to every single coach, all these players. Some of these coaches run late in other spots. The Big 12 has partnerships with every media company, which is unlike any other league. So we did get to talk to Jensen this year. Look forward to getting to know him as the season goes along for year 2. But I just got to see how it works. Yep. It worked amazingly for Kevin Young at BYU in year 1. Now Utah brings in alum and see if it can have the NBA connection as well. Jensen developed a really, really solid reputation as a long-time high-level assistant. Learned from Rick Majerus. Played on the Utah team that made the Final Four in '98. We see there, but it's just it's a whole boatload of transfers there. And then UCF, like Baylor, does not return a scholarship player who had minutes last season. We'll just have to wait and see on that. I think it's objectively fair to project those kind of teams near the bottom of the conference. Only 3 more we haven't dove into. The Horned Frogs of TCU, Oklahoma State with Steve Lutz, and West Virginia with Ross Hodge. On TCU, Jamie Dixon's track record, big picture at the program is pretty damn impressive. Now, they can go through these ebbs and flows, these ups and downs. I don't have TCU making the tournament, but they bring back a bunch of supporting pieces. So we see who makes the jump. David Punch, Micah Robinson, Jace Posey, Malik Diallo. They're all back. Ashton Simmons coming off a redshirt. Keep an eye on him. Could be a guy that really pops there. And then they bring in a variety of players. Jaden Pierre from Providence is probably the most notable one. I didn't feel comfortable slotting TCU into a bottom 4 spot, so I didn't put him there. And then as for West Virginia, Ross Hodge, you and I got to catch up with him off camera. Got a really impressive group. They were aberrationally good in their scrimmage they just played against Maryland. Even Ross admitted it was like
we shot it crazy.
We shot it crazy, and if you tell me we can be a lot of what we were there, I'll be interested to see. They said Honor Huff has looked as good, if not better, than anyone on the roster. He likes how Trayson Eaglestaff, who was the player last year at North Dakota, the only player to go for 50-plus in a game, he actually likes how he's adapting the physicality. He really challenged him. Keep an eye on him. But we'll just wait and see. Just so West Virginia fans know this, GP, but Hodge, he had like a good 5-6 year run when he was under McCaslin at North Texas, and now they're in the same stat. Like, he had opportunities to essentially triple, if not quadruple, his salary to go be a head coach at the power conference level. Stayed true to that school, became the head coach at North Texas. Look how it works out. 45 years old. He's running West Virginia's program right now. I'm intrigued by them. And then Oklahoma State. I will tell you this. I talked with Steve Lutz off camera. He is quietly confident in his team, and in talking to some folks in the Big 12, I do think there's a chance that if there's a team that's projected somewhat comfortably outside the NCAA tournament picture going into the season, I had one person in the Big 12 say they think that the Cowboys are the most likely team that punctures into that preseason top 6. He actually thinks it's them more than anyone else. The biggest name to know is probably Anthony Roy, who didn't qualify to be the nation's leading.
But was leading the nation in scoring.
He led the nation in scoring, got hurt playing for Doug Gottlieb at Green Bay. Elite shooter. Look for him. Isaiah Coleman, Lutz told me, has actually had some amazing moments here in the past few weeks at Oklahoma State. Take it away with any of the teams that we just talked about.
Yeah, well, like Roy is the name at Oklahoma State. I mean, who knows if that 25.7 points per game is going to translate to the Big 12? In fact, probably not.
No.
But still, it's just another interesting talent in the league. We've got returning All-Americans. We've got one-and-done lottery picks. And then we got the guy who quite literally led the nation in scoring last season had he qualified for it.
Yeah, just a super, super fascinating league. We'll wrap up with this. I actually think we're doing pace-wise. We're doing okay. We're a little past what we thought we'd be, but we're doing okay. We're not even getting into the fact that I might have adopted a puppy at Big 12 Media Day.
Norlander might have a puppy.
Well, that's for another show, because we do want to wrap this up. We got to get to dinner here soon. We got to get out of these suits here. You might need to find a sling for your arm. Okay, over under NCAA tournament bids for the Big 12. I am going to, and I think we kind of spoiled this earlier, but it's okay. I'm going to set it at 8.5. I'll go first. I'm going to go over. Repeat myself here. Here's who I have going: Houston, Zona, Kansas, Texas Tech, BYU, Iowa State. That's top 6. I got them. And then I will go over, because I do think I'll have Baylor, Cincinnati, and I think Haggerty's good enough. I think Kansas State breaks through, and those are my 9. Something tells me, do we have the exact same 9? Do you agree?
I agree. We have 9, and it's the exact same 9, and we did it independent of each other.
We did it totally independent of each other. And then we'll wrap up with our preseason predictions, our conference awards here. I thought that we would have the same picks. We do not. Mm-mm. So let's first go with Player of the Year. Actually, I say first, we're going to probably do these jointly, because as you and I completely agree on this, and it doesn't happen often, but if you're going to have a freshman be the Player of the Year, it also has to be the freshman of the year. But you and I know there is a universe that is conceivable in which, like, Peterson wins one and Dybantsa wins the other, which is insane, but it could happen.
No, that will be stupid.
But it might. In fact, it might happen.
If idiots are allowed to vote, it will happen, because it makes no sense to do it that way. Oh, Jesus, I had one here.
Did it happen?
No, it happened in Candid Coaches this year. Do you even know how?
Oh, no. Well, I know what happened in this regard. Painter was picked to have the best team.
Yes. And
but Kelvin was the most likely coach to be the first-time national champion.
That one.
Yes.
I didn't get hung up on it, because whatever.
Yes.
But it's like.
But they didn't line up.
Yeah, it doesn't line up.
Correct. Yes.
But
that can happen.
That could happen.
You can be the best team and not win the title. So.
Well, yeah, but even that could happen in voting, because a coach could just be like. You take we had a bunch of Purdue's going to be the best team, Houston's going to be the best team, and then suddenly the people who thought St. John's is going to be the best team, now they got to pick the next first-time champion, so then they just shift their votes to Kelvin.
Correct.
Right. So that's the way that happens.
Yes.
That makes sense. I understand how that could happen. There is no scenario where you watch a season of Big 12 basketball, decide Darren Peterson is the best player in the league, but somebody else is the freshman of the year. That's stupid. I will not stand for that. I'm not standing for that.
For content's sake, I'm rooting for it to happen, to see this man lose.
That's the type of stuff that makes me go crazy.
I know. And that's why I want to see it.
That is how I ended up writing the Politics column for all those years. I just got mad one day. I said, I can't stand for this idiocy anymore. And then I had a whole column.
That being said, you had the same Player of the Year, the freshman of the year. Who's your pick?
I went AJ.
Yeah.
And
AJ Dybantsa.
I've just decided I'm going to be ride or die on 2 things. And fingers crossed. Because the world is pushing against me on both of these things. I'm St. John's #1, and I'm AJ Dybantsa, #1 player in the country, #1 pick in the draft.
Yep.
But I will tell you, I understand the Peterson stuff. And when I hear Bill Self talk about him, the way he's so openly and comfortably talks about him, you're going to say Darren Peterson, and I'm not going to even try to argue with you.
We do have a disagreement. When the ironic part is he interviewed Peterson. That's my pick for player and freshman of the year. I interviewed Dybantsa. That's his pick. I actually kind of like that it landed that way. And if we had done this like 2 weeks ago, I would have picked Dybantsa. Now, the only reason why I'm taking Peterson, and it is narrow, I'm going to ride with you're going with your St. John's Red Storm. I'm just going in on Kansas being top 7, top 8 in the country, and Peterson having the ball in his hands more than Dybantsa, being as responsible, if not more, than anyone. Like, Dybantsa is going to be playing with guys like Rob Wright could have a half dozen games where he goes for 20+. Richie Saunders could outscore A.J. Dybantsa 40% of the game inventory, 50% of the game inventory this season. It's not unthinkable, because I even asked Kevin Young, like, how's this role going to change? He said, really not that much. Well, Richie Saunders was one of the best scorers and shooters in the league last season. That's basically why. But you and I both know that you could easily see my pick winning, and I can easily see your pick winning. Right. But we do, as a function of this, have Toppin third. We don't even have Milos Uzan at Houston as the pick. We don't even have the guy that I have for the transfer of the year as the pick. This is the most interesting league, but I would think it's going to wind up being one of these two players. But sometimes college basketball is not the NBA draft. It's not that. They don't have to always line up. Well, we disagree.
I wish college basketball was the NBA draft.
Well, it's not. Transfer of the year, I think we agree. P.J. Haggerty, sure. Kansas State. Got to be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got to be. We expect him to be a guy that averages, again, north of 20 a game. And if Tang is right, and he is a guy that's not just doing that, but clearing 6 assists or so a game, he's going to be in the conversation for player of the year in this league as well. I think K-State's going to have to be a team that jumps into the top 5 to validate that if we're going to see Kansas and BYU consistently in the top 10, top 5, top 15 of the rankings. But we agree, transfer of the year, Haggerty at K-State.
I think in October, we can reasonably name 3 different people for preseason player of the year, maybe even 4.
Yeah.
I think there's only one sensible answer for transfer of the year right now. I can't tell you what it's going to look like in March,
right.
But when the consensus second-team All-American is an option, you take him.
There we go. Live from Big 12 Media Day. That's a show. We went 10 minutes over, but by the way, this just blew by. Thank you again to Kansas City, everyone with the Big 12, to our crew here, Gigi, Greg, Nada, who's uploading this, Debo, everyone back in Fort Lauderdale who fed all these interviews. A really, really productive, worthwhile trip. We're just that much closer. I'm so ready for games, and we have so many more podcasts to do before we actually play games there. But this was the last of our big conference previews. We will have next week. We will have a best of the rest. Look at all the other schools of note outside the Power 5 conferences. So wait for that to land in your feeds early next week.
I was going to tap the table with my left arm
like
you were.
Tap it.
But I can't move my arm.
We'll do that scene from McConaughey and DiCaprio.
That's all I got.
What do you do in the chat? Do the chats. There you go. Right. There you go. My guy's playing hurt. It's been a long day.
I just went to sleep, and I woke up, and I couldn't move my arm.
I know.
Man, it's tough in life. I hope you never get to this point.
I'm going to.
But I'm at a point now where I can just hurt myself sleeping, apparently.
Yes. It happens, man. I don't know what
And I want to be clear. I was by myself.
Yes.
I was by myself.
Okay, well, I'm glad for that.
I just want to be clear.
Very clear on that.
Yeah, I was by myself.
Okay.
But I woke up, and if I had to pitch today, I couldn't. Not with this one.
Yeah, well, you pitch righty anyway. So.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's a show.
Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Terry Teagle. He's a legend. Huck Larnell. Thank you guys once again for watching and listening to the Eye on College Basketball Podcast.
There we go. I tried to get this guy to do no ties. He was like, no, it's either tie or nothing.
Yeah, the problem is you take off your tie before these cameras stop, you're messing up your microphone.
Yeah, whatever. We're done anyway.
If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere. You can subscribe to podcasts, Apple, Spotify. There's more of us than there are of them.
Jerome Tang said it on the pod.
I saw the BYU Cougar out there.
Yeah, Kevin Young didn't know what we were talking about.
No, I saw the actual Cougar.
Oh, you saw the actual
Cougar.
I
wanted to go talk to it so bad.
Yeah.
I had some real.
Oh, why didn't you?
I had some real questions.
You know what that is? That's missed out on content. We missed out on some real content. All right, 2026, we get it done.
We'll talk to you again real soon. Till then, take care.